Malala Yousafzai, Ryan White, the Tinker family, Gwendolyn Sanders. These are just a few examples of children who have been involved in activism and have changed the world. Malala Yousafzai fought for girls' education. Ryan White fought against the stigma for those with HIV or AIDS. Those involved in the Tinker v. DeMoore case fought for students' rights in schools, and Gwendolyn Sanders fought for desegregation in schools. These children have achieved so much by being involved. So the question is, why now are children being criticized for being involved in activism? With the current social and political climate in the United States, there have been many protests and marches, and children have attended bearing signs and bearing their voices. However, many just brushed it off as them being influenced by their parents. But the truth is, child activism is very important to children, their peers, and this country. When children get involved in activism, they inspire their peers, and since they are the future of the society, it is important for them to have a voice. The most popular and relevant activism march recently was the Women's March on Washington, which took place January 2017 and January 2018. Their mission, quoted on the Women's March website, is to harness the political power of diverse women in their communities to create transformative change. They have many programs like Youth in Power, Empower Coalition, and Power to the Polls. These programs are accessible to adults and children who want to fight for social change. They make their message accessible to children through their youth-based programs like Youth in Power. Youth in Power is a program where children can open chapters in their schools. It teaches students how to be leaders and how to get involved in activism in their schools and community. This is important because it teaches children they should have a voice for issues that are important to them, like racial inequality, bullying, and sexism. For example, I've seen children supporting girl empowerment, fighting against the proposed wall, and showing how it negatively impacts their lives, and standing up against rape culture, holding signs that say boys will be held accountable instead of boys will be boys, and standing up for pay equality, young boys holding signs that say my sister works just as hard as me, she should earn just as much as me. All these programs show that children should have a voice in activism and how it's very important to them, and the Women's March making their message accessible to children has their mission and purpose known among different demographics. We are members of a country when we are allowed and encouraged to speak our minds. Even President Donald Trump, who was the root of some of the protests, said he recognized the rights of those who protest. So why are we ignoring children when it is important for them to get involved? Bertrand Joel, an assistant professor of African and African American Studies at Lehman College, says this about the rights activists fight for. Human rights are rooted in the dignity and worth of a human person and are essential to the well-being of every man, woman, and child. They include civil, political, economic, social, cultural, environmental, and other rights and freedoms. They are universal, inalienable, and indivisible, and inscribed in international, regional, and national frameworks. This shows how important these rights are and why we should fight for them. When children get involved in activism, they show their peers it's important to have a voice. People, especially young people, don't feel comfortable voicing their opinion because they aren't educated about every topic. However, no one really is. Even though children don't have as high of an education or as much experience as adults, doesn't mean that their opinions are any less important. They just need to know their values and what is right. As long as they find something that they care about, they can get involved in activism for it. Kids are also the future of our society. These kids will grow up to be senators, mayors, governors, and even presidents. Sure, current norms and policies could stay in place, but when change is made, it'll be at the hands of the current generation. The young generation are already very educated about important issues. Sophie Cruz, a 6-year-old activist, said this at her speech at the Women's March in 2017. Let us fight with love, faith, and courage so that our families will not be destroyed. I also want to tell the children not to be afraid because we are not alone. If children get involved in activism as soon as possible, they can form their own opinions, and when they're older, they can make a true difference. No matter what you believe in, you should always stand up for your ideas. Your ideas are important and will contribute something to society. Kids have already done some pretty amazing things with their voices. Children have led the force for desegregation in schools during the period of civil rights, pushed for rights for students in schools during the Vietnam War, and stood up against political corruption in the instance of United States involvement in other conflicts like the Vietnam War and Korean War. I have seen firsthand the empowerment and inspiration one gains from participating in activism. I attended the 2017 Women's March on New Jersey in Trenton, New Jersey. While waiting in line and looking through the crowd, I realized I was one of the youngest people there. I wish more people my age and even younger than me would have attended because I learned so many interesting things. I learned more about the political climate in New Jersey, advances for women's rights, immigration policies, racial issues, and children's issues in New Jersey. All of these things can impact children in school, whether they're impacted by racial injustice, have a fear of being deported, or are treated unfairly in school because of their gender. It's best that academic curriculums do their best to afford equal opportunities for all children. All of society has to understand that culture has an important impact on children, so it has to be examined and understood carefully. Attending this march helped me understand these issues and how we can get involved to solve them, and I wish this opportunity on everyone. As we marched to the steps of the State House, it was overwhelming to see the number of people in my community bearing their signs, chanting, "This is what democracy looks like," and "No justice, no peace." We came together for a common idea, and whether it was our first time marching or our 100th time marching, we all came together as a community and supported each other. Current activists who are an inspiration to all are David Hogg, Emma Gonzalez, and their classmates. They are gun control activists who began their fight after surviving a school shooting in their high school in Parkland, Florida. Them and their classmates organized the March for Our Lives, where the nation came together in Washington, D.C. to say never again to children dying in school shootings. Other activists who are inspirations are Marley Diaz, who fought for diversity in books and school, Rebecca Brusahoff, who's a 10-year-old transgender rights activist, and Ashawn Johnson, who fought for the schools in his community. This shows that kids just need to find an issue that they're passionate about and share their opinion on it. Social media has a large impact on child activism because kids now have access to unlimited types of information, and it supports activism because it spreads information about it. Kids can follow activists on Instagram and Twitter or join the newsletters of different activist organizations like the Women's March, and they only need an email address. All these things are easy to do and help kids learn about activism. Kids can also post their own ideas and share them with others with social media. This creates a community where kids are not afraid to share their opinions and are free from judgment and criticism from others. After I attended the Women's March, I followed the Women's March Instagram and the Instagram of speakers there. They continue to post about important issues this day, and I learned a lot from the things that they've shared. Activism is very prevalent on the internet, and social media is a good way for kids to learn about it. The best way to reach the political and social climate that you want in your country is to get involved. Participate in issues that are close to your heart, like the Women's March, the March for Our Lives, the March for Science, the Pride March, or find a march that you're interested in. Register to vote so you can make sure your voice is heard when important decisions are being made. Join a club about things that you're interested in involving activism, and this way you can voice your opinion with people that you have things in common with, or just talk to your family members. We should listen to the voices of the younger generation and their opinions, because their ideas are free from the bias and prejudice that comes along with growing up. And in order to completely make our country a better place, we have to listen to their opinions and have them be acknowledged. The 31st President of the United States, Herbert Hoover, once said, "Children are our most valuable resource." It's important to never forget that and always remember their passion and their drive. Thank you.